I was a nervous wreck. I had no presence on air. I was like, today, the president is meeting with White House security advisors, Zbigniew Brzezinski. I was so worried about mispronouncing Zbigniew Brzezinski's name. Anyway, I came back to the newsroom and the desk assistant, he said, the president of the network called. He never wants to see you on the air again. I was like, wah, wah. I remember when I was an intern at ABC News in Washington. This was in the dark ages, Sally. But I remember there was a reporter for 2020 named Don Farmer, and he seemed nice. So I went to his office. I was a desk assistant. I was 23 years old, and I had written down a list of story ideas for him for 2020. And, I asked him, may I come in for 10 minutes? And there was a Center for Compulsive Gambling in Pikesville, Maryland that I had heard about and all these other stories. And I basically said, I think these would be really good for 2020. P.S. Flash forward, and he and his wife, Chris Curl, had a show on CNN, and he remembered me from that, and I ended up being associate producer and then a producer for a show, and then because I wanted to be on air and wanted to do reporting, he gave me opportunities to do that. And then when someone kind of said something inappropriate to me at a meeting at CNN in Atlanta, it was Don Farmer I went to, and he said, "Sit down, we're gonna write a memo to this person." And he and I got on his Selectric IBM typewriter, and together we fashioned a memo that basically told the vice president of CNN that it was inappropriate for him to talk to me that way. So, isn't that funny? Just from that one step of going to his office, giving him story ideas, it ended up he was an incredibly important person in my career, a great mentor, and somebody who really opened doors for me and believed in me.
It's great career advice, I think, to just I mean, living by what's the worst that could happen or what do you have to lose? Because the outcome could have been it went nowhere, but there's no downside to you walking in and being
Yeah.
bold, I feel like, you know?
Yeah, and I had enough confidence to think my ideas were good, were
Mhm.
worthy,
Mhm.
and deserved being heard.
Yes.
And I think a lot of women, Sally, ask me, "Where do you get your confidence?" Because I think there is a bit of a crisis in confidence among young women out
And men, I think.
and men
Mhm.
in the professional world. And I'm not sure I'm not sure how to fix that. We have to figure it out because I think for me it was always a kind of fake it till you make it mentality.
Mhm.
I remember when I wasn't the White House correspondent. I was low level I was in a low level job at CNN, and the Washington bureau chief said, I want you to try going to the White House and you can report on what the president is doing that day. Well, I had really never done on air reporting. And so I was a nervous wreck. I was terrible. And I was like, really just, I had no presence on air. I was like, today, the president is meeting with White House security advisors, Zbigniew Brzezinski. I was so worried about mispronouncing Zbigniew Brzezinski's name for good reason. Anyway, I came back to the newsroom and the desk assistant, a guy named Bill Hensel, he was very nice. He said, "Come over here." So I'm like, "Dee, dee, 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 dee." I didn't think I was very good, but I didn't think I was a disaster. He said, "The president of the network called. He never wants to see you on the air again." I was like, "Wah, wah." And you would think, like, I was so deflated, and you would think that I would say, "Okay, I'm gonna go be in the retail program at Macy's or something
Mhm.
after that." But I said, "Okay," and I kind of thought, "All right, I probably did suck." And I thought, "Well, I'm gonna get better." And I looked around at all the reporters and I thought, "What do they have that I don't have?" Experience, that's all. So I set out to get more experienced. And, I think a lot of confidence comes from how you were raised, honestly. I think so much of it is having parents who maybe not too much because I think now you're seeing these snowplow kids where their parents do everything for them, and I don't think that's a good idea, but have parents who think you're great,
Yeah.
who believe in you, who give you good feedback, who give you constructive criticism too, but I had such great parents. I think they gave me that strong foundation that and such a good sense of who I was and so much confidence really from an early age from when I ran for vice president of Jamestown Elementary and then president. And I won both. Thank you. And Stephen Russell went around. Isn't it funny how you remember like I feel
Vividly.
like you remember things from way in the past and you can't remember what you had for breakfast.
Truly.
Yes. Well, I'm at that stage. But Stephen Russell went around the school and said that I had won by only 11 votes. I said, "It's like Stephen, like being a little bit pregnant, you know?" I didn't say that because I was only in 6th grade, but I remember thinking, "Well, I won, so shut up, Stephen Russell."
What did happen at CNN that you touched on?
Yeah, well, I was 26 or 27, and I was filling in for a producer on the show that my friends Don Farmer and Chris Curl anchored. And I walked in and everybody was around a table. It was all male and one woman who did promos. It's so funny. I can see her face. And I walked in and I'm not sure what they had been discussing, but the vice president of CNN, a guy named Ed Turner, not to be confused with Ted Turner, said, "Well, that's not like Katie. She's successful because of her industriousness, her work ethic, her excellent writing skills, and her breast size." And I remember I sat down and I think it was on it was like against the wall because all the chairs at the table had been taken. And I remember just my whole body getting hot. And I was so weirded out, you know? And this was so I was 26. So this was in like 1983 or 4 maybe.
Mhm.
And but still, it was just such a weird, inappropriate thing to say, and that's when I went to Don Farmer and said, "This happened, what should I do?"
Those are shocking experiences, but what I will say is having trust in someone that is in a leadership role that you can approach with the circumstances and then invite in to help manage the situation.
I mean, how wonderful that this man he passed away a couple of years ago, Don. I remember, like, he turned around and he said, "Let's write him this memo or note," and I saved it. I saved the memo. It's in my sentimental box, which
Mhm.
I have,
Mm.
like, with stuff that is meaningful to me, and, but think if he had said, "Oh, you know, he's just being a jerk." But honestly, the confidence that gave me to stand
Mhm.
up to somebody
Mhm.
and not always under the protective shadow of someone in Don's position,
Mhm.
I think that was incalculable.